Yeah, the single biggest thing was limiting losses. So that 80% loss that happened in 1999, luckily that did not happen again. I did learn from that. But the part that I struggled with the most, there were a few things I struggled with, like when it came to like the canceling thing. For the most part, it all completely resonated with me. But the parts that I had a hard time with, number one was like the size of trying to get very concentrated positions.
Mm,
And the reason that I struggled with that was because I wasn't really able to. And again, now things are different because literally, you can pick up your phone and set alerts and figure out what's happening even while you're in the middle of a meeting. At that time, you couldn't do that.
right.
So because I was away and a lot of times I was traveling, or even when I wasn't traveling, I was working 60, 70 hours a week, I didn't have time to watch exactly what was going on. So a few of the times when I tried to go in with bigger size and, there would be a 20% drawdown or 20% gap down because of earnings. If I had a big position, even if everything else looked great up until that point, there was nothing I could do about that. And
Right.
so, like, I was experiencing drawdowns that I felt like I really didn't have that much control over at that time. So that was one thing. And then the other thing that I struggled with is I definitely understood the importance of risk management and stop loss. Like when I started my career at Aetna, I was a financial underwriter. So risk was basically like, I remember like our the vice president of our division when I started underwriting, he said our responsibility was to the shareholders of the company because like we had to protect the financials of Aetna. So I've always been paid attention to risk, but the thing that I had a hard time with was the 7 to 8% stop
Hmm.
loss. And not because of the numbers, like I could completely get the math that if you lose 7 or 8%, it's much easier to come back from that. But based on the charts I was looking at, when I had a 7 to 8%, I would set up like automated stop loss because I couldn't keep an eye on it. It didn't really seem to make sense with a technical spot on the chart.
Hmm.
So that was one of the lessons that like I would set up the automatic 8%. A lot of times it would hit the thing, it would turn back around. And when I went back and looked at it, I other than the fact that it was 7 or 8%, I couldn't really understand why it made sense on the chart for me to pick that. So what I learned from that was for me, I needed to set like a more of a technical stop loss. And because I tended to have that longer term focus, and for so much of the time that I started doing Can Slim, I just used Investors Business Daily. I didn't even have Market Smith until I entered the competition, the USIC competition. So I focused on the 50-day and the 10-week. So I position sized based on, okay, if it were to come down to the 50-day or the 10-week, and I tried to buy when it was like within 10% of that, but sometimes I couldn't always control that.